On August 17th, 2035, we found out that 5 years had already passed since the big disaster happened. From that day on, monsters sprang up everywhere, hunting down everything that moved and turning all humans into easy targets. Perched high on a rooftop, a young man hides while we learn that thanks to awakened workers, 40% of all humanity still survives years later. The young man stays seated, tapping his phone to catch some tune from the radio and kill the boredom. After dismissing the awakened as a lie, the announcer declared that humanity was still alive because of the walls built from super strong metal. Hearing a noise, the boy jumps up to see what's going on. She realized the noises outside were monsters wandering the streets below. He glances around and sees 6 strong Class C creatures and 1 rare Class A, just as Gio predicted. The young man grabs his binoculars and tries to see more of what's going on. She saw an empty parking lot just around the corner. He thinks for a moment and says things are about to get real. Then suddenly yellow lightning flashes in the sky, and the boy smiles while calling at the sudden gate. In the center of the bright yellow light, a path begins to open up. Watching closely, the young man notes that someone said people usually walk out of these portals. A man jumps into the bright light to prove the truth, then lands safely on the ground right after. With his arms crossed over his face like an X and his eyes still closed, the traveler shouts that he's finally home, lifting his arms in pure joy. But his arrival draws the nearby creature's attention, and they immediately start running straight at him. The man makes a grimace, realizing that he's just arrived and is already in big trouble. He stares in disbelief at a monster that looks like a devilish octopus and can't figure out why it is there. Perched atop the building, the boy with the binoculars kept his eye on things, smiling because he knew exactly what was coming. Deep down below, a green monster readies a terrible attack on the new arrival, just as the spying boy whispers that the fight has finally started. After a long battle leaves the traveler hurt, a hero realizes they are up against a Class C monster that would take at least 10 high-level hunters to defeat. The man launches his attack, the Cradle of Swords, sending thousands of blades of light flying straight at the monster. After the traveler gave the order, he used his hand to guide the strike, hitting several parts of the creature's body. Up there, the hero points out that the man has already killed 6 monsters in just 1 hour. It's amazing he pulled it all off by himself, and now he sits alone in the class of monsters. Even if every hunter in the world came together, they still couldn't beat this. The nosy boy grinned and said that hearing about a copy master is totally different from watching one work. That hesitant beast suddenly strikes with deadly force, causing the time traveler to gasp in shock. The protagonist then says he just needs to wait a little longer for all that power to be his. Dodging the strike while mid-air, the copy master counters with a burst of light, unleashing his ghost sprint right after swinging his demonic blade in a zigzag that can cut countless times. With a perfect strike, the man brings the monster crashing down. The boy with the binoculars, full of excitement, shouts that what they just saw was a battle far too huge to understand. Now that the hunter is down, he has to keep moving. As he steps closer, the boy realizes everything is unfolding exactly as Caillou Hyun predicted. He reaches out to touch the hunter, calls out to see if he's all right, and recalls that the person who gave him the tip said they saved someone and gained their power. Yet now the man on the ground looks in serious trouble as he starts coughing up his strawberry juice. The boy then wonders how he could help. After opening his eyes, the injured man asks what year it is. The boy replied that it was August of the year 2035. When he heard that, the man stood up and said, "I spent 30 years in the place I came from, but here only 5 years have passed." Feeling scared, the protagonist begs the man to stop moving and lie down, but he sadly says it is already too late. The boy silently knows the man won't make it, while the traveler bitterly realizes he wasted his power opening the portal. With no sound, the boy just holds a sad look on his face. With his fate accepted, the hunter reveals he has a final request. He wants the boy to find his family and care for them if they're still alive, so he sadly hands a photo to his helper. With a sweet but cold voice, the young man admits he's too weak to help anyone. But the man says he isn't asking for a favor. Instead, he'll hand over his own power. All he needs is his name to get the transfer rolling. We find ourselves in a world shattered by apocalyptic disasters. The protagonist's life has always followed the same 2 paths. We arrive at one of these scenes where the boy lies wounded on the ground. Standing right before him, the armored man declared that he had finally met Cho Jan-hook. All of this happened back in June 2008. He mocks the blonde man for trying to squirm away like a slippery eel. We see that the boy has taken a terrible hit to his belly and is badly hurt. Looking ahead, he admits he can't escape this time and wonders who told the man he was there. With a wicked grin, the villain claimed he'd struck $1 million deal with Jeans, Sue to promise never to hunt him down. The news makes Hook so furious that he curses the traitor. As the man snatches up a sword and declares that he now holds the answers to finish his quest, the protagonist suddenly recognizes those words as strangely familiar. He grabbed a glowing stone and declared that it was the key to turning his life around. When he sees the object, the bad guy doesn't even flinch. Then the boy reveals that this is the regression stone. The man's eyes go wide as he realizes what's coming and yells at his men to stop the boy, but it's too late because a blinding light starts to appear. With a smile, our boy waves goodbye and promises to find Jonathan Curtis in the past, hoping only to travel back to a time when his siblings were still alive. Everything turns out, and we find ourselves 23 years in the past, right before the world falls apart, where he introduces himself to the traveler who promised to pass on his power. The two shake hands to start the transfer. Huck says that for once, things will turn out differently. A fierce wind begins to blow, and the system asks the man who once held such power if he wants his body to vanish once it's over. Knowing he was doomed, he pressed the button to trigger the move just as the hero took on all his powers. Once the count hits 20%, the man on the ground warns the boy not to relax his guard. Even though things are already moving forward, a single unexpected event can stop everything instantly. Suddenly, a giant creature jumps out from behind our boy, leaving him trapped in a tough spot. Laughing, the hunter admits that life is truly a mess. Seeing the very monster he thought he'd defeated still standing, Park Kang-ho sighs that in novels, heroes usually go home to live happily ever after. Right after that warning, he'll soon lose his powers, so the boy must run away fast because there's nothing else to do, and if life is a mess, you just have to live with it, while his last advice is for Hook to adapt and survive whatever he can. To his shock, the boy snatches up an iron bar and declares he isn't crazy, just fed up with always running away. With courage in his heart, he stands his ground against the legendary beast, yet the monster does not strike. It turned its back and walked away, leaving him completely puzzled. He dropped the heavy iron bar, relieved to say that he thought he'd die from the tension. The hunter claimed he was lucky, but the boy countered that his luck was thanks to his father, who had badly wounded the monster. Just as Hook finishes speaking, he sees the man's body fading away and panics. But the ghostly figure just tells him that if he doesn't find his family to keep his promise, he will be haunted forever. The transfer finishes, but a warning flashes that the user's body is too weak to hold the system and must be rebuilt through awakening. The final warning, catching him off guard, is that rebuilding him might hurt. Right away, Duck hears a crack in his neck and knows that despite his tough act, it really hurts. His entire body twists as he screams that every bone feels like it's snapping and his skin is tearing apart. Suddenly, the boy drops his act, looks up, and lets out a loud scream, only to be followed the next morning by a whistling man driving a car. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots something ahead that makes him stop and stare. The hero stands right there, loading boxes onto the pickup truck. The boy asks what Kai Chil-him is doing there as he walks up. Silently, the man repeats the boy's question, knowing the boy had asked for time off to swap shifts, while Puck lies and claims a monster trapped him right as he was heading home. His stunned colleague asks if he really wanted to die for daring to sleep there. Dodging the question, the protagonist simply asks him to leave that fact behind. He explains that it's way too early for him to show up without the rest of the team. While still lying, the man claims he woke up early to arrive first, convinced his companion knows he's hiding a secret at that spot, though he actually stumbled upon the truth that his failed attempt to use a special power left him so badly beaten by others that people thought he was dead. His fall was easy to understand because the fool tried to show everyone he could copy their special powers during registration, and this made many people furious since they hated having their gifts stolen so easily. After saying goodbye and starting the car, Chuck glances at the passenger seat where he has 3 Class B crystals and 4 Class C crystals he stole from Hyung, even though he feels bad because those items once saved his life. Now he just needs to figure out how to use them, since he can't sell them. We also found that Hyung, after gaining Kang-ho's power, couldn't find any of the missing crystals. When he came back the next day to get them, they had all vanished. The man lived with one huge regret for the rest of his life. He had failed to protect the crystals. That's why Heck rushed to grab the items early, and as he thought about it, the boy realized he could probably slip a few monster cores on the black market. But if it's the core of a powerful monster, the government will come sniffing around and investigate, leaving the protagonist with nothing but a small pile of cheap crystals to sell. He stares at the phone and realizes there's only one quick way to register as an awakened. When he answers the phone and asks why he's calling, the boy grins and tells Shielman that he has money and wants to grab beers, promising to pay if Shielman agrees to help him out. Inside the safe zone of Sue, Huck leans against a wall and chats with someone standing inside the building. The man offered to pay $600 for everything he brought, but the boy asked him to pay a bit more. Feeling a bit shy, the The buyer admits that things used to cost 800, but now people don't want them as much, leaving a frustrated boy wondering what to do next. As the man describes how people are fewer, costs are climbing, and nobody has the money to spend. Then, two little kids burst onto the scene, tears streaming down their faces. As they hugged him, they whispered that they thought he had left them behind. Peek drops to his knees to talk straight and close with his little sister Choi Unjong and brother Choi Uncall. He points a finger and asks why the two of them are hanging out instead of being at school. Just then, the man cut in to say the boy shouldn't bully the little ones who only showed up because they were so worried. Then he tells the boy to think harder about what would happen to his brothers and sisters if something terrible comes to him. Cut gently tells the crying children to stop and come home with him so he can make lunch for them. His little brothers and sisters break into smiles the moment they hear that grilled meat is on the menu. Suddenly, Koi Unjun is called over by the landlord's grandson, who reminds him that the rent is seriously overdue and he needs to stop by the apartment above to talk. Everyone piled into the car and drove to the apartment, where Huck had already taken care of lunch. At the table, his siblings sit beside the grandma and her grandson. The old lady wonders why he brought so much food, and he smiles to say he stopped at the butcher to buy meat just because he thought of her, but she worries he should have saved it for his little siblings. Huck just hands her the envelope with the overdue rent, saying nothing. Reaching for the envelope, the woman tells him she understands his struggle and has agreed to take only half the money. Surprised, our boy shakes his head and says it isn't needed. So the old lady's grandson decides that since hard times call for helping each other, he should just take the offer. His grandmother bonks him on the head with a spoon and tells him the apartment belongs to her, so he'd best leave her alone. The boy jokes as he touches his head, saying the house will be his when she passes away. The old lady threatens to hit him again, blaming Changu for her upset stomach. Since the boy skips studying for nonsense while lying he claims he's getting ready, so that when he wakes up he can learn from real hunters, because now that the Awaken era has started, college is done. Annoyed, the lady asks Skuck to talk to her grandson, since the young man usually listens to him. But right then the protagonist's phone rings. He goes to the balcony and answers, and Holmin says he spoke with his guild leader who wants him to show up, even though he knows he won't get paid. If he does well, he might just become a regular part of the team, though he'd likely stay in a supporting role for now. The protagonist agrees, and his friend wonders why he's suddenly decided to become a porter. The boy can't speak the truth, so he claims his job is getting too hard and he needs to find something else. Hellman tells him to meet at Gate 7 on the west wall the next day at 7:30 in the morning. After hanging up, our boy says everything is going exactly as planned. The next day, he walks straight to the gate, eager to master the tanker move and sign up at the club. His friend calls out his name and walks up, telling him he got here early. The boy waves with a smile, but his mind is still focused on the plan he has made. Human then calls his tank leader Hong to say that this is the friend he mentioned before. The man introduces himself, claims he's the oldest, and invites the boy to ask him anything. The boy reaches out to shake hands and says he can't wait to work with him. Hyung shakes hands and says the feeling is mutual, unaware that Hook has just unlocked a choice to keep 3 of the skills Hyung gave him. Without a second thought, he grabs the skills Iron Skin, Shield Attack, and Overload, and the system chimes in to tell Hook that the copying is done and he can check them out in the skill menu. Our kid thinks a quick handshake gave him the power of a giant truck. The armored man stands before him, watching with a confused look because he can't figure out why the other man is smiling. Human asks why he's holding his hand like that with such a creepy grin, and the man just laughs, saying his grip is strong enough to ease the awkwardness. Feeling ashamed, the protagonist lets go of the team leader's hand and apologizes, but the man waves it off and invites him to get into the car right in front. Getting closer to the car, we spot 2 guys talking while a girl and another guy look over their bows like they're studying them. The driver is all set, but a young woman standing right next to him is completely distracted, staring down at her phone. The armored man gives orders to Jun Hook, telling him to say hello to the group before getting on board. But the boy worries that no matter how many tricks he learns, he'll always be too weak to truly copy the powers of those far stronger than him. He figured that even if he wipes the group member skills later, he still has to copy them first. As the journey begins, the truck rolls out with the whole team inside. As we sit there, our boy lets slip that he's already learned 13 skills, 3 of which are for healing. We go back to the girl we left distracted, and she's still glued to her phone. The boy looked at her and showed off his new mapping and hunter skills plus 7 negotiator skills, saying the coolest part was that he could now use them all at once. We spot a city filled with buildings where lizard-like monsters with purple tongues and red eyes are running wildly as if trying to attack someone. Hai stands with his shield up, demanding to know where the creature thinks it's going, while the protagonist wonders how mixing different skills can make him truly powerful. Lee Danny steps into the fight on his leader's command, quickly looses 3 arrows from his bow that strike a monster dead center. The leader tells Aijin to end the fight right away. Perched on top of a building, the girl says she gets it. She shoots an arrow so fast it strikes the monster right in the eye. As the creature crashes to the ground, Hyung cheers the team for a perfect job and tells them that just 2 enemies are left to fight. Hidden in the back, Young Huk watches silently, wondering if he should just sign up for the game to have some fun. So they decided to wait until the hunt was done, knowing there was no point in making things harder than they had to be. After a little while, the team leader walked up to praise the protagonist's amazing endurance for carrying so much loot all day on a successful hunt. Just then, something grabs the man's attention. We spot another guy walking up, a heavy bag on his back, and he says he can't carry it anymore. Shinman then explains that his friend was a big name at school because he was so good with his fists. The man asks if they're talking about the school before the disaster, and the boy confirms it, saying the protagonist ran past all the trained athletes without even trying. Jun Hook blushes as the team leader calls him a delinquent, but his friend jumps in to say he only fought the right people and always dreamed of being a detective. The man wraps up the chat and slides an envelope with the day's pay into our boy's hand. But the boy says he doesn't need it, so Hyung insists he just take it and say thanks because without his help, everything would have been different, and then he asks if the boy wants to keep being a porter. With a grin, our boy tells us he'll give it some thought. The man walks away, promising to meet again soon, and Keeman asks if he'll be at the barbecue later, but he shakes his head, saying he's already got plans for that night. Curious, the young man asks what plans are being discussed, and if it's a date with a girl. As time went on, we finally saw the SU Association building wake up. Behind a VIP counter for tankers, a woman looks scared after hearing some bad news. Facing her, Hook pauses to repeat his words, telling her he's come to register as an awakened, only for her to quickly ask if he's certain he really is an awakened tanker. He confirmed that he woke up right that morning. She stares at him in disbelief, wondering if what he said could really be true, while he nervously asks if something is wrong. After he wakes up as the first tanker in months, the girl congratulates him on this rare event and tells him she only needs his ID to keep the process going. Our boy swiftly hands over the paper, gestures toward a bench where others are waiting, and the girl tells him to take a seat and hang out there. Bored with nothing to do, the boy sits down. A heavy sadness washes over his face as he rubs his head, wondering if the moment he opened his eyes after returning was actually just a dream. He remembers the day his siblings visited him while he was locked up, only to die in a car crash that made him weep for days and drove him to become a bad person. When he returned to the past and saw the 2 were still alive, his heart swelled with so much joy that he was certain he was dreaming at first. When he finally believed it was all true, he vowed he'd never let go of the people he loves again. And for that, he will stand guard over everyone with all he has to give. With his system activated, he takes a look at the reports. Then he realized his resistance ranged from 6,000 to 15,000, and his strength was randomly set between 2,000 and 5,000, meaning his star was actually pretty good for a first awakening. Just as a notification suddenly popped up saying the core was being created, leaving him confused, so Duck decided to wait for the process to finish and find out what it was. Suddenly, a voice shouts his name. He turns to see a smiling girl in a lab coat standing beside a man, and after she hands him back his ID and confirms his identity is verified, he just needs to follow the doctor to take the test. The man steps forward, shakes hands, and introduces himself as Lim Jahun. The boy introduces himself and says it's nice to meet him. The 2 men clasp hands, and the man explains that he's already set everything up so the test can begin right now. In the elevator, the boy thinks to himself that he tried to copy the man's power, but he realizes he isn't awakened, which confuses him since he thought everyone working for the association had special abilities. Inside the room, the man tells you the test comes in 3 parts. First, the doctor connects wires to Cuck's body to measure his strength and tells him to relax while he does it. Then he says the next step will use Cuck's special power to create a shield. After a while, a boy holding his shield gets ready to fight a dummy monster while a doctor and another person watch through a glass window. Giant announces that the aggression test is starting, and all the boy has to do is attack the dummy in front of him. The hero obeys instantly, and the man declares that he's free to strike anywhere he chooses. Our boy then hits the dummy's head with the shield, leaving the doctors wide-eyed and frozen. Keep on the next part, where the doctor gives Huck a cup that looks like hot coffee. He then explains that because of trouble picking the judges, the 3rd part can only happen in just 2 days. The boy grabs his coffee and asks if the test went okay, and the doctor says yes. He just needs to head to reception to grab the basic gear. Exciting, our boy grits out that he finally can't wait to get the official gear from the group. Jahun shares his worry that there are fewer tankers and healers around, and it makes him feel uneasy. As he takes a sip, the protagonist just listens closely. The man explains that most people forced to wake up choose to become negotiators or support staff. Plus, awakening stones are super rare, and you barely find any for tankers or healers. After thinking it over, the hero realizes that even with a stone, there's no promise the person will wake up, and since he is a criminal, he can't officially become an awakened. The doctor paused, apologized, and admitted he was just thrilled to finally see a tanker again after so long. Kuk stands up and says it's no big deal. Jae-hun wraps it up by telling the boy to be there on time to finish the third test, which he will text him about the next day. The man reaches out a hand, and the protagonist stares at it before smiling and shaking it back, saying he can't wait to work together. As mate gets closer, the sky outside is turning dark. Hook drags his suitcase down the street, shouting into his phone as who asks what's going on. The boy quickly reassures him that it's nothing serious, just letting him know he's already awakened as a tanker. The guy on the other end was so shocked he asked if he were being serious or just pulling his leg. Peering through a window, our boy insists he wouldn't joke about that, then steps into what looks like a shop, thinking he's finally in the right place, just as his friend finally believes what he heard. He laughed, looking amazed because the whole thing felt impossible. Since they were together only hours ago, his friend suddenly turned into a tanker, so the young man asks if Heck is still there without waiting for an answer. Our boy can't stop staring at that fancy mantis leg model that costs a crazy $3 million. He remembers the shaky phone call, mentions his earlier visit to the group, and explains that since only the final part of the project remains, he'd love to go on one more hunt to watch. His friend then asks why, even though he's already seen how things work. The boy replied that he was so busy carrying things that he didn't notice all the moves Hong made. Right then, our hero spots something and his face lights up with joy. Still holding the line, Humin tells him he'll check with the team leader and get back with an answer. The boy thanked the seller, snatched up the bracelet, and said he wanted to take it with him as he left. Thinking to himself, he murmurs that if he's right, that's the artifact belonging to Jaden Russell, the villain who ended up in third place. Before things went wrong, he was 8th in the rankings and went out for drinks with a man who showed him how to get the bracelet and the main potions. Without a word, the seller just stares at him coldly while dreaming of the item's 30% power boost, but the boy breaks the silence to ask why the man is looking at him like that. The seller apologizes for bothering them and asks if the boy had already registered as an awakened. Our boy agrees, but just as the man suddenly throws a punch, the boy catches his arm before it hits, proving he was right. The man then smiles and reveals he is also awakened with the power to teleport, leaving our hero relieved but still shaking from how close he came to getting hit. As he reaches out to bump fists, he thinks to himself that he should copy that power too. Then another man steps forward, calls himself Huang Mansu, and reveals he has awakened the power to bend space. Huck smiles and says it's nice to meet him, but he secretly wishes he could do that too. The first seller then claims he heard the boy talking on his phone and asks if he really is a tanker. Sitting right beside him, the other man claims that this gift makes him practically a noble among the awakened. Our boy is surprised to see them awake and asks if this is a side gig, but the two men shake their heads and say that fixing things at the shop is actually their real job. The seller, who has a little longer hair, says that with so many people waking up with special powers, it's become really hard to find work. Someone says he decided to open an antique shop selling supplies for awakened people just to make a living. He then hands the boy the exact solution he wanted and tells him that both things will cost 300,000 karo. Hex grins, knowing he finally has everything he needs. With the glowing purple bracelet in hand, the strawberry juice connecting him to everything, he knows he has finally succeeded. As the boy slips the accessory onto his arm and calls it Twilight, a message pops up announcing that the 38th of the Master System's 101 creations has awakened, officially registering the toy bracelet as a combined artifact that now stands alongside the others. We also found that because a user from the original system signed up the accessory, it was left completely unlocked. Confused, Hook wonders what the information about the 101 artifacts really means. His phone rings and pulls him back from his daydream. Staring at the device, he admits it gave him a scare. At the other end of the line, Chielman reveals that he's already told Hung about you. But the man insisted it was impossible for him to wake up as a tanker, because he won't believe it unless he sees it himself. Our boy laughs, saying he thought he'd been rejected. His friend laughs along and tells him he can finally let go. Suddenly, the power our boy copied kicks in and a portal pops open. Though he is frightened, he slips his arm through as Chillman warns him not to be late. And the next day, with a suitcase in hand, the boy promises to arrive on time and meet him tomorrow. The next day, the whole team showed up at Gate 7, just like we promised. A loud shout of greeting hits everyone there, leaving them all frozen in shock. Hook stands ready in his association gear, shield in hand, while Kilman chatters about the outfit and Hung chimes in to confirm the boy has truly become a tanker. The man is just as shocked and asks how that could happen in only one day. Feeling foolish and caught in a lie, the hero claims he woke up on his way home. The leader then remarks that the sharp drop in natural awakenings makes this moment truly remarkable. The boy nodded in agreement, saying he'd face his final test the next day and asking if the man could help him. The man admits he might not have much to teach, but as someone who started in this job, he has one piece of advice to share. He grabs a shield and asks the young man if he knows why he always carries it. Then he says it wasn't because he woke up as a tanker, but because he chose to be one. When fighting monsters, your strength will eventually fade, so the boy must remember that only his own determination can bring him back. Taking that advice, the group marches straight to the battlefield. Right in the middle of the room, a beast that looks like a mix between a bear and an armadillo is asleep, and while hidden, the leader asks Hung if he's found out what kind of prey it is and where it is, to which the young man replies that it is indeed a true decker. Hung then says, "In that case, we can begin." He then tells Jin Dijuan to check the monster's location one more time. Without a second thought, the young boy begins to draw the map. The leader points to the map and tells everyone that as true deckers, they are monsters with low attack and slow moves, but they can defend themselves as well as any E-rank monster. Worried, Queen admits he isn't sure if they have the strength to keep going. One of his friends joked that the race hasn't even begun, yet he already feels completely drained. Another worried young man adds that the monster might run right at him. The leader boosts everyone's spirits, reminding them that their prey is slow and boasting that his squad is one of the finest veteran teams around. As he walks up to the young woman with long hair, he jokes that her day as a healer is going to be easy. Hong asks Jill if the traps are all set, and the young man confirms they are. He grabs a shield and tells Shu Min and Dong to follow, while Haisu and Hook must stay put. The protagonist nodded, showing he had heard and understood the order. As the rest of the team moves off, he feels something is wrong because he knows a monster caused their friend's group to die. But if it was a Dumaki, they should have survived, so he must figure out why they all died. Our boy looks around and realizes something feels all wrong. As soon as they were back on the battlefield, the tanker leader turned to Een and asked if everything was ready, and she gave him a quick yes. Then the man tells the girl to pull the trigger. The young woman fires an arrow that strikes the monster's shell right on target. She then says she'll move on to the next point, just like she planned. As the monster stands up in a rage, the leader yells for everyone to get ready for the fight. Right beside him, his partners nod and say they get it. Balancing on just two legs, the creature readies itself to strike with every ounce of its power. Following the plan, the archer releases 3 perfect shots that make the bear armadillo beast roar in pain, and the young man realizes he has truly landed a hit. Han then compliments him, but tells him to stay back, only for the young man to announce his charge, leaving the man worried because it wasn't the plan. Standing right before the monster, the young man declares that he won't just scratch its back, but will finish it off and finally go home. His arrow struck the true decker right in the armpit, making it angrier than before. The leader then told the boy to stop being foolish and listen to what he had to say. But the boy laughed, claiming the creature was so slow it couldn't even catch him. He didn't realize he was talking too much until the monster punched him, knocking him into the wall. Chielman shouts his friend's name in a worried voice, deciding he's angry enough to go in with them now. The young man leaps into the air, ready to drive his sword into the monster. He struck the shell perfectly, sending sparks flying everywhere. Bad luck for him since the hit didn't kill the beast, which now stares him down while he screams that its shell is too tough for his sword to scratch. Turning around, the Real Decker decides to focus on the boy who was thrown. With only seconds left, the boy throws himself in front of the creature's deadly claws. But Qiong steps forward to save him, slamming his shield into the enemy with every ounce of strength he has. With that single hit, the beast seemed to fall asleep only to snap awake and rise instantly. So the leader yells for Tumun to prepare for hand-to-hand fighting while EG and Donyuk strike from afar. He flicks on his power, sending blue waves racing everywhere, while the beast just keeps roaring and the man grins, ready to finish the fight in aggressive mode. With its paws, the true Decker swings at the man and hits his shield. Then an arrow flies by to catch its eye while the archer tells Jin that it's time. From above, the girl keeps shooting until she hits the monster right in the face, so the creature gets annoyed, curls up, and turns into its armadillo shell. H immediately commands Chi Min to start the melee attack right then. Behind the monster, the young man springs into action to hit it from behind while his leader charges straight at its face. As he hits the monster, the tanker shouts for everyone to keep hitting with basic attacks until he says otherwise. The protagonist's friend, who is fighting alongside him, shouts that staring at the monster's back alone makes him feel exhausted. Our boy stands far away from the fight, watching and listening to every sound. Standing beside him, the healer claims that if this plan succeeds, the hunt will be over instantly, and then she adds that she wants to come along because real Deckers are rare. Only once or twice a year, if you're really lucky. Jack then asks how often the team has faced such a monster, and the girl replies that they've only met it 3 times in the last 5 months. She smiles as the boy, eager to learn more, apologizes for all his questions. She then hands him a strange device and says it might just help him. Jeremy Corp built the Jeremy M7 so he could watch and soak up everything he needed for his big test tomorrow. As our boy presses the device's lens over his eyes, he suddenly discovers he can now spot fascinating facts hidden in the world around him. Then the young woman mentions that a real Decker is a monster with 30,000 health and a massive 150,000 shield. Kook realizes that cracking the monster's shell will take a really long time. Suddenly, Hyong Nim shouts that the team's 4 members have vanished from the map with no signs of life left. Young leans in and asks if that means those members are gone. With a racing heart, the protagonist nervously asks if the details are true. Far off, we see one building start to shake and tear big cracks into its walls. Suddenly, a huge crash splits the ground open, revealing the giant praying mantis known as Mantis, whose sharp claws are dripping with strawberry juice. As the monster draws near, our boy shouts that we're in big trouble. With the fight still raging, the leader frantically asks how much longer it will take for the monster to arrive. With a sweet, cold voice, the blonde boy says it will take no more than 2 minutes, while the man shouts orders for Hook and Hesso to leave the area right now and find cover. The hero finally gets why the orders made his stomach turn. He grabs the healer's hand and yells they must get out fast, and though the girl agrees, she realizes he's running toward Hyong and asks where he's going. He replies that since they're so close, there's no way to escape. The leader spots them coming and demands to know why the boy hasn't pulled back as he told him to. With his shield raised, he warns that fighting is impossible because the monsters are too fast, especially since the real Decker is already there. So if they join forces, everything will be wiped out in a bloodbath. The mantis, its eyes red with rage, is ready to strike with all its strength. Standing right in front of the monster, our brave boy says the only thing left to do is keep fighting for as long as they possibly can. Desperate, Kyung asks if the young man has gone mad for thinking all awakened tankers are the same, not realizing he's just a rookie. As they argue, a growling monster keeps hanging out right in front of them. The leader warns that if a total beginner with no combat experience recklessly attacks a mantis, things could go very wrong. His explanation gets cut short when the hungry mantis, bored of waiting, suddenly strikes. With no other choice, Huck raises his shield to defend himself, knowing that once he gets his registration card, he'll be in live combat where even rookies must succeed, so he starts running and jumping as the mantis keeps pounding on his shield. The boy chooses to fight, striking the monster's head with such fierce courage that everyone else watches in shock. Humin calls himself an idiot because this isn't just a test, but a deadly battle that could cost him his life. The protagonist shrugs it off and points out that a real Decker is sneaking up behind them, and if we don't stop him right now, everyone there will be wiped out. The naked armadillo beast tears into the 2 young men without any mercy. Hung holds up his shield to block the blow and tells Jungkook to step in with the hero to buy some time for a deal. Without hesitation, the other young man jumps in to join our boy. He grips his shield until his muscles burn and begs Keeman to stay and help him fight the monster. Suddenly, the creature makes a wild move that sends the man flying across the room. Down on the ground, he urgently tells Geel to set a binding trap on the true Decker right now. The void obeys instantly, without a second's delay. The trap begins spinning fast toward the monster, snapping chains around its legs just as it gets close. Shouting, the boy says it will last just 5 minutes. As the leader stands up, he realizes the monster blocks the way ahead and the man guards the back, leaving no escape and making things look hopeless. Kuck swings his shield with every ounce of strength he has, using it both to smash his enemies and to protect himself. He went along with the other boy, who shoots an arrow every 5 seconds. But the giant mantis doesn't even flinch when the blows hit it. Refusing to give up, our boy hits the creature again, causing it to turn and stare with glowing red eyes, and then something strange suddenly snaps in its mind, leaving even our boy shocked. From the building's peak, the archer cheers for Soo Ee-jin's strike, but the girl snaps, no time for praise, while the mantis spots the attacker and dives back toward the girl. Huck screams at the girl to run, but she knows it's too late as the mantis's legs reach her window and slam into her, causing terrible wounds. From way down below, the archer screams your name in pure desperation. As he kept sending arrows flying, he hoped to draw the monster's attention. With no success, he fears everything is lost, so the worried healer beside him asks what they should do next. Staring at his bracelet, Our boy realizes he was too careless to expect becoming strong in just one night. He also knew that striking with the shield 2 times would keep his artifact working. As he digs into his own abilities, he resolves to find a way to save Yunin from dying. Staring at the data on his screen, he wonders if he should risk boosting the bracelet's power by 50% using special skills. With no other choice, the boy decides to do it, even if it costs him everything. Blue light starts spreading from him and hits the broken window just as the mantis is about to jump in and finish the hurt girl who can't get away. While Heck desperately prays his move will pull the beast back, the young healer beside him knows she must act, unable to stand by and watch her friend die without trying. She dashes away, leaving our little hero all by himself. With nothing else to do, he looks ahead and sees that his plan worked. The team leader tells Jin to go, but Hux knows she will be okay. Han can't believe what he just heard, but our boy just told him he managed to scare the monster away. Not believing it, the man asks the boy what he's talking about, but the boy doesn't even answer because he's already charging at the mantis. As he swings his shield, he worries that using his special power with only simple hits is too dangerous. Realizing he has no choice but to use his copied powers, he unleashes a destructive ability and a negotiation skill just as a giant mantis nearly crushes him. But he leaps away to escape. Now that his powers are active, Huck Bose's attacks are as strong as a dealer's. And as a strange sensation floods his body, he smiles with the memory of this feeling from his past life, knowing it's the same surge that woke his cells and once helped him become the 8th-ranked villain. They call this intense feeling hyperperception. As the mantis's legs start to crack, our boy charges forward with renewed power, his old fighting spirit waking up. Finally, Ink can stand up inside the building. But when she tries to fire her weapon, the arrow slips from her hand because her arm is bleeding so much that she is losing her strength like strawberry juice. Then Haisu suddenly shows up, catching the young woman completely off guard. With a wave of her power, she starts fixing her friend, but whispers for her to stay quiet since the noise will break her concentration. The archer then tells her she should be helping cook instead of mending her wounds. Her friend reassures her that the boy will be okay, since he is still strong and she can't do much until his health gets better. She looks out the window and calls Cuck crazy, noting that he looks just like the team leader since he hasn't taken any damage yet. We're back to watching our boy fight with all his strength, proving just how powerful he truly is. As Chielman and Hun battle the true Decker, the creature roars in rage while their leader warns that its shield won't hold. So the boy must stop wasting time on simple hits and instead pump up his powers before the trap runs out, and he can do it without worrying about his friend. The monster, now almost free, readies itself to attack the man. He put up a shield and said this was the attack he had been waiting for. Just as the blow is about to land, Kung bolts forward to strike first while a voice warns that the trap will vanish in 10 seconds. With a loud shout, the man tells Schumann that the time has finally arrived. Understanding the danger, the young man lunges forward, slashing his weapon and triggering a powerful strike against the panel. As the young man prays for the blue, zigzagging beam of light in the monster's body to explode, we watch it flicker and dance. His attack lands perfectly, and the real Decker starts falling apart into dust. Hung yells to the whole team that this side is safe. Standing before the defeated beast, the protagonist's friend notices a red crystal and tells them they also found a skill card. The leader cuts short the boy's joy, declaring there's no time to waste, and command him to rush and help Hick. Our boy keeps hitting the mantis over and over, pulling out green slime with every strike. As the man, a tanker himself, watched the scene, he couldn't believe what he was seeing and asked how it was even possible. As the boy fights by himself and looks back, he tells Chman to leave if he's already finished his part. The young man stops himself from stepping closer, admitting that he is truly crazy for fighting alone while now giving orders too. H agrees with our boy and asks him to treat this like real practice since he seems to be doing it well. Heck asks if he's really sure, and the man nods yes, then looks around to see if anyone objects. Although everyone agrees, Ijin insists she's not the kind of person who can live with debt. Then an arrow shot from the building's top flies past the mantis and misses its mark. Our boy leaps with all his might to smash his shield right into the monster's head, forcing the beast to stop fighting and crash down. Young opens his mouth wide to grab Kmen's attention and asks if he really believes his friend has turned into a tanker. As the day fades into night, the battlefield turns dark. The team leader urges everyone to move fast and leave right now, because even though they are exhausted, staying too long could let other monsters show up. Hack wipes the green slime from his shield while listening closely. Hellman steps up to ask if he's ever tried that before, and the puzzled boy wonders what on earth he's talking about. The young man explains that he's referring to his hyperperception, a skill he relied on to win tough fights back in school. Our boy stays silent, but his friend insists that after everything he did earlier, there is no way he would never use it. Then he asks if the boy is all right, remembering that he often got headaches after using that power. Putting down his shield, the hero insists he's okay, guessing that a strange power must be the reason. His friend insists he's incredibly lucky and owes him a beer that must be enjoyed tonight with no excuses. When Huck heard his phone ring, he said he'd have to wait until another day because he needed to spend time with his siblings. Hung catches him off guard, asking who he is and how a rookie tanker could have fought like that after just awakening yesterday. The boy turns around and says, maybe, while worried Keel Min tries to stop him from doing something stupid. But the boy just explained that the desperate situation must have flooded him with so much adrenaline that his strength felt like it was superhuman. Believing the tale was a lie, the man asks if the boy really thinks he will fall for it. Then our boy chooses to hold his tongue. The leader steps forward to speak with his team, sharing something important he wants everyone to know. Then he says that Cut took down a mantis all by himself that day. But since it's not on the official record, anyone finding out about this emergency could get the whole team in serious trouble. That's why everyone has to keep their secret and never tell a soul about what really happened that day. The archer lets out a relieved chuckle at H's words, while the other two laugh and agree they aren't stupid, promising to accept whatever fate awaits the grave. Surprised, our boy calls the man, who thanks him and leaves him even more confused by explaining that without him, everyone would be dead, so the leader will include him in the profit as a tanker. With his mouth wide open, the boy asks if the others won't get as much as they hoped. Haisu steps forward to agree with him, noting that no one would mind, but she smiles and adds that if anyone does object, the boy must tell her, so she can instantly stop healing them. Our boy's phone rings again, and he says he has to answer, so the curious girl asks if it's his girlfriend. The boy smiles and claims it's just his siblings, but we quickly see he's lying when the caller turns out to be the association, leaving him confused and wondering why they want to talk to him. They lead us into the association building. In the room, the boy asks why his test had to be moved up. Jae-hoon replies that the hunters sent to Thailand will be coming back that very night. The boy, puzzled by the connection, asks what it has to do with anything, so the man explains that a low-rank monster appeared in Bangkok a week ago, drawing hunters from everywhere, and since Korea performed better than Japan in that mission, the association is now focusing all its attention on it. Hut realizes they just want to get rid of him and says he's ready, so while the man apologizes and explains the test, Jae-hyun tells them it'll be a fake fight in a virtual room. Suddenly, a monster began to form right before the boy's eyes, and he realized it looked just like the simulation room he had seen before he went back in time. The doctor cuts him off to say the Beast Hill fight is a Xerus F rank. The test lasts just 1 hour, and every minute he survives earns him more points. Looking back, the man turns to his friends and asks if they are all set. In a room with him stood Hyong, a man wearing glasses and a woman with long hair. The three of them will serve as judges for the test, and after nodding to show everyone is ready, the tanker gives the signal to begin. Ja-hyun speaks once more to the hero to let them know the test has begun. As the boy stares at the monster charging toward him, he worries about the news that high-ranking hunters are coming to the association. With his shield raised, he charges forward and forces the monster to run away. After giving it some thought, Hook realizes he must seize the chance to learn the skills of the hunters who are coming. As the monster grins back at the boy, the kid thinks that if he plays his cards right, he's going to win this time. But now, he has to focus his mind on the test. He thinks about his super sense and says he could just slip by using it. With the monster usually taking 4 hours to hunt, if his stage 3 stats are better than stage 2, the association will definitely start to suspect him. So, he moves like he's reading from script, just enough to pass the time without doing too much or too little, all to stay off anyone's radar. Hours later, Jae-hoon notices the boy is using the same move despite his earlier confidence, while the impressed judges and a smiling Hung declare him a long-awaited super rookie, and even the woman and the man with glasses marvel at how calmly he dodges attacks. She grabs the two judges' attention and says she needs to head to the bathroom, but will be right back. Then she leaves, and Hyong claims he ate too much for breakfast and needs to step out, leaving the man in the suit alone with the doctor in the room. The man took off his glasses and said, "There's no point in keeping this test going." Jadhun's cold sweat trickles down as he looks to his friend, voice trembling. "Are you certain about this?" Silently, the judge snatches up his phone to say he'll step out, and outside, the woman is on a call discussing Hook. Hug is also on the phone, raving about how amazing the boy is, before asking the person on the line if they remember that movements that look easy in a book are actually the hardest to do. The other guy in glasses tells someone just how amazing the protagonist is. While Cut keeps fighting the monster, the man warns that 2 other guilds are waiting, so they must strike first before anyone else can move. As soon as the test is over, the woman behind the counter slides a piece of paper across the counter to the boy. She smiles and tells him this is his awakening registration certificate, praising him for the good work he has done. Our boy grabs the paper and looks over what it says. She says that ranking C right after his first awakening is amazing, and he asks why it's such a big deal. She replies that this is rare, because most folks settle somewhere between rank F and E. As Cook walked away from the building, he scratched his head, confused that he got a C rank even though he didn't do anything special. He chose to find joy in finally having his registration, knowing it meant he and his younger siblings could now live happily doing things the right way. Suddenly, a loud shout grabs his attention. He glances to the side and spots a roaring mass of fans shouting out their heroes' names. A trio of 2 men and a woman steps forward, and Hike realizes they are high-ranking hunters named Giant, a negotiator, and a second-class sorceress. Kim Yino, the top-ranked national player, stands alongside Lee Dao, who leads the tanker rankings. Next to Dao, the protagonist sees he's in a foul mood and starts wondering if he has the guts to speak up. With a smile on his face, he decides to take the plunge, whatever the outcome. Our kid walks right in front of the trio, catching them totally off guard. He felt a bit awkward, but said he was a fan and honored to meet them. Jay smiles and kindly asks for an autograph, but the boy shakes his head no, leaving the girl feeling a bit embarrassed. He then admits that he is actually a huge fan of Lee Dao. The man snaps and demands to know what's going on, causing our boy to shrink back in sweat buckets as he realizes he's in deep trouble. He leans in close and asks the man to say it again, which only makes him even more terrified. Cook stares at the tanker, puzzled by its evil look that seems like a villain's glare. The man walked right up to him, and he started to think this might be the moment he gets beaten up. The man looks even angrier and asks again what he just said. With no other choice, our boy says he only told them he was a fan. Lee Dao turns back to his friends and asks if they heard that. Kim Yunho laughed, while Jian claimed they were almost there, which left the protagonist scratching their head in confusion. Then the woman blames the idiot who walked in, but the tanker jokes that they just found out he has fans. We jump back 30 minutes to the inside of a limo, where the trio was chatting on the way to the association. While sitting down, the negotiator remembers when a fan tried to talk to him, but dude drove him away. Ever since then, she hadn't heard anyone else speak so fondly of him. With her arms crossed, she says she's never met anyone like him and reminds him that he knows she hates liars. The man insists he's not lying because, as himself, he naturally has fans, so the woman promises to give him something he really wants if a true fan shows up at the association, but if not, he'll have to help her out instead. Curious, Dao asks what kind of help she wants, and the woman explains that since they're hunting a C-rank monster but lack enough tankers, if he loses the bet, he'll have to be the main tank just once, completely for free, without getting a single dime. Now back in the moment, the man beams with victory after winning the bet, while the injured man glares in defeat after losing. Dao questions Huck once more if he truly is his fan, while our boy begins to wonder if he should take and run. Surprisingly, the man holds out his hand to sign something but has no pen, so he just offers a handshake instead. Frozen in his tracks, the boy wonders what's going on but decides to reach out and shake the other guy's hand anyway. To learn the man's special power, Dao asks for his name, and the boy gives him a card to call whenever he needs help. Kim Yunho steps into the chat and asks the boy if his real name is really Hook. Still not sure what was happening, he says yes anyway. Then the man smiles, introduces himself, and reaches out his hand. With a quick handshake, the boy learned the man's special skill, and the man was shocked to find a rare treasure there, so the tanker asked what his friend was talking about. Kim Yongo hugs him and declares that his fans are true national treasures before they both step back to rush and talk to the association president. The woman lingers behind, muttering that the whole thing is a real pain. Hack stepped up, claiming he was her biggest fan and that shaking her hand would be the greatest honor of his life. Jaeon just turns her back and walks away, ignoring him, which makes the boy think her personality is strange since she had just offered an autograph earlier. He can't reach the final power, so he turns and walks away, knowing he's already got enough. Right then in New York at the American Awaken Association, a man asks his partner what they're staring at on the computer screen. Both watched as Hux tested his powers, consuming just 3% of his life force after 3 hours, until the bald man asked the blonde where the boy was from, and he replied, he's from Korea. His partner, curious, suggests it might be a fake video, but the blonde man shakes his head and insists they are being watched without even knowing it. He grabs the phone to call, but his friend stops him, saying it's too early to wake up the big bosses, so Paolo turns to Kevin to ask how many top-tier awakeners are around now. They replied that only 5 people began as rank C, so nations around the world are now watching these awakenings with great interest. Kevin says nothing while his friend warns that if they let this boy slip away, they might lose a future champion. The screen lights up with strange clues that we just have to dig deeper into. A voice tells the partner to take a really good look at the pictures. Under a bright, sunny sky, a building stands in the middle of quiet streets while a man calmly steps through the door at its top. He walks up to the door and reaches out to touch the doorknob. As he walked down the stairs, he thought about how his defenses and fighting skills had grown stronger over time. The system says that universal skills make your defense stronger and slash the damage you take. A short while later, we see crumbling old ruins bathe in the calm light of a clear sky. A scary monster looks like it's about to smash its enemies. The fighter gets ready to blast his shield with a shockwave. Not long after, he triggers the shield's ton skill to block the enemy's strike. Right then, the monster feels the hit and its power starts to fade. Noticing his rival was hurt, he yelled out for Kim Yu. Kim Yu's special talents don't make her hit harder. Instead, the system points out exactly how much faster she gets and how much better she dodges. Everyone cheered how powerful the lightning flash attack was. Just as the warrior jumps into the air to strike, the creature leaps up to fight back. In a flash, he vanishes and reappears to strike a sure hit blow. Right then, he lands a hard blow right on the monster's throat. The power kicks in, and his moves blur so fast they seem to vanish. A smile slowly spreads across the protagonist's face, glowing with pure satisfaction. As he stepped down each stair, he couldn't help but think about how wild everything had become. The powers he stole from Li Dao and Kim Yu were so incredible that they far outshine the ones he already possessed. By mixing a few of them, you'll be strong enough to take on monsters from the early game zones. As he steps into the apartment, he finds everything quiet and still. But soon, he begins to feel like something odd is up. Out of nowhere, he steps forward and spots something on the counter. Reaching out to touch the burger, he quickly realizes it's freezing cold. A thought begins to take shape in his mind. Suddenly, the girl bursts out of her deep sleep and swings open a room door. He feels lost and turns to look at the girl again. She asks why he was so late arriving. The protagonist turns to Yam Jang and asks if anyone had eaten dinner yet. Though she was still tired, the girl explained that waiting was a good idea, so everyone could eat together. Seeing the problem, he tries to tell her she should have eaten, but she says she wasn't hungry, so he asks why. Her eyes flood with tears as she tells him about her nightmare where he died and the fact that he hasn't answered his phone. As she held him tight, she confessed how terrified she'd been because she couldn't reach him. But the protagonist was okay and tried to calm Yunjong, who looked super worried. Just then, another kid showed up dressed in his blue pajamas. The little boy was scared stiff because his big brother was taking so long. Now that everything was settled, everyone could finally sit down and share chicken together. The hero promised to spend more time with the kids when he returned, but work pulled him away and ruined everything. The three of them huddle around the table, gobbling up the chicken just like a happy family. It was already late outside, and the night had taken full control of everything. Both kids were fast asleep in their beds. In the meantime, the hero was poking around on his phone. Holding his camera, he snapped a few shots and smiled, knowing everything was finally ready. All that was left was to sign up the item and sit tight until someone wanted to buy it. Even so, he looked like he was torn between choices while carefully watching everything around him. He felt selling just Karen's blessing, and the mountain splitter was throwing away too much. He slowly reached for the card, but it wouldn't work for him, so he never got the new power. Yet he tried to make a copy, but that failed too. In that very moment, he knew he had no choice left, and suddenly, a pop-up message about core generation made him look shocked. The boy's head throbbed the moment his new power took root, and the system cheered on with fresh points and abilities waiting to be used. He didn't understand what was happening, but the noise in his head just kept getting louder and louder. He watches carefully as the core generation slowly fills from just 1%. But he had no clue what it meant because Kil Hyong had never told him a thing about it. Still, he felt a nagging worry that he was about to see something strange at the end of the AD loading. Suddenly, a wave of power surges through every muscle and vein in his body. He pauses with a thoughtful look, lost in the memory of how he felt waking up. His eyes turn a bright blue, so he checked his status to see what was happening. The broken buildings look empty and no one lives in them. Right in the middle of the street, a car drives straight through the city's pile of rubble. While inside the vehicle, the hero types their search query into the system. The original system splits into two parts, the master and the copy. The master system is the central mind that controls the spread of the derivative system across the dimensions, standing alone as an independent spirit rather than a waking consciousness. While the world turned its eyes elsewhere, a hidden system woke up inside one soul, granting it the power to steal every ability and even mix them together to create brand new ones. The copies touched every living thing using a strange new system that the hero still didn't fully get. As he climbed higher, he thought about how he could steal powers from the monsters, and after a long walk, he finally arrived. He chugged some water to get his strength back. In the end, he decided the info was truly useful and worth the thought. Not long after, he pauses to check his status window. Crow Janyuk, a 25-year-old scribe in the class, was at core level 1 and had already gained some new power. Suddenly, he spotted changes in the status window, where the screen now listed his abilities, extra points, and a brand new status that had just appeared. With a grin, Trojan Hyuk watches the Twilight bracelet spark to life, granting him a powerful stat boost thanks to the All-Stars plus 100 option. He felt great about his promotion and couldn't wait to peek inside the core. He realized that the recharge point showed how much he could charge, and in a quiet thought, he figured that the power used might mean more than 20,000 units had been consumed. If he had those bracelet options, he could make everything with great speed and ease. But what truly baffled him was that the stats were still stuck at level 1. He hoped that leveling up would make his stats grow too. Suddenly, he hears a weird noise coming from down below. His feet rush toward the building's edge. Suddenly, he spots something strange and does everything he can to get everyone's attention. I walked through the broken streets of the ruined city with a mighty monster. He doesn't waste a moment. He opens the city map and studies every corner. Just as we hoped, the area around us was empty, making it the perfect spot for the test. Meanwhile, the creature's face clearly showed how unhappy it was. Without wasting a second, Koi Janyuk sprinted to the parking lot to get a closer look. It turned out his enemy had no eyes, yet he was terrifyingly strong. The boy stood frozen, waiting for the perfect moment to begin the fight. His eyes shift color as he pulls out his power weapon. He could pick any weapon he wanted, like a spear, a sword, or a dagger. The creature was losing its patience and let out a scream. Its feet started creeping closer to the hero. The best move is to pull out the long bow and face that powerful enemy head-on. In a flash, the weapon starts to take shape in his hands. In that split second, the hero finally gets why Park Gango was such a powerhouse. But he had no time to think because his opponent was charging at him with all his strength. Koi Junha pulls back his bowstring and gets ready to strike. The arrow zooms right at the monster's face and strikes it dead on. With his weapon in hand, he lets out fast and deadly shots. His eyes burned with certainty that he had mastered every part of his power, while his opponent was battered from all sides, screaming in helpless terror. Before long, the creature begins to wobble and lose its shaky balance. But Troy Jan Hyuk refused to give up and ran straight at his opponent. He leapt in the air and told the system to change his weapon to a longsword. Smiling with a huge amount of confidence, he believes he has fully inherited Park Gango's powers. As he steps nearer to the creature, he clutches his sword with a firm grip. In the end, he wanted to become as strong as his hero. With one swift strike, he drove his blade into the hideous beast, leaving shards of metal scattered across the dark night as the monster fell. The hero feels totally satisfied now that he's finally beaten his enemy. Staring at his phone, he saw that over an hour had passed, but he knew that with so many demons around, it would take another half hour to be safe. All of a sudden, he hears his phone ringing. He stared at the screen and realized that the agreement was actually connected to the association. Confused, he wonders if he should answer the call because it's so late, yet his curiosity gets the better of him, and he wants to know who is on the other end. On the other side, a woman steps forward and introduces herself as Kim Juvie from the reception team. She didn't spell out what she wanted, but she asked if the boy was awake. Kim Ji shares how she got a sudden call from the secretary's office. Just as Jun Hyuk learned the association president wanted to meet with him, he spotted a monster right there. Even while staying on the call, he works hard to find out more about the meeting. Before he could pick a time, he first needed to find out when the president was coming. The receptionist told him that he still had to be there at 7 in the morning, just like every single day. At that moment, the clock read 6:20 a.m., leaving the hero 40 minutes to reach the meeting spot before the monster crept closer and closer. Junyuk didn't want to waste time, so he was certain he could get there in just 30 minutes. He hung up the phone and focused his whole attention on the next challenge. Heavy footsteps grew louder as the monster rushed closer. He raised his shield and triggered the stun charge. The monster strike got stopped right away. With his eyes glowing bright once more, he charged forward, fueled by the power of a lightning strike. Suddenly, he dashes faster than light to sneak up behind his enemy. The moment he touches the skin, he gains the chance to copy the power of the lowest-ranked soldier from the Vargo Grace. He doesn't waste a second. He simply says yes and lets the system do the work. With a quick leap, he lands back on the ground. Soon enough, the perfect copy was done. With a powerful roar, the warrior commands the subspace gates to swing wide. A burst of bright, colorful energy, likely from a C-grade crystal, suddenly appeared before him, signaling that something important had been found. Holding the crystal, he could pull its power in to boost the core's level. Right then, the C-grade crystal begins to soak up the power. Suddenly, warmth floods the hero's veins, spreading through him like a second heartbeat. All he could think about was boosting the core's power to save time. Now that everything had changed, Troy Junga couldn't stop wondering what kind of fight was waiting for him next. At the same time, the sun's light stretched out over the land. A moment later, the hero steps through a swirling portal and finds himself back in the busy city. Staring at his phone, he realizes that if things keep growing this fast, he'll unlock his second power much sooner than expected. The clock reads 6:55 in the morning. A rumble grows in the young man's stomach as he stands alone, feeling hunger spreading through his whole body. Shortly after, he finds himself standing in an elevator beside a woman. He opens the system to look over the details of the brand new skill he just copied. He looked so puzzled and curious that he couldn't even make sense of the honor given to the lowest-ranking soldier. After the explanation, the lowest-ranking soldiers of Vargo Grace would recognize him and refuse to attack. As he steps out of the elevator, he can't stop thinking about how to stop such an attack. As he trailed behind the secretary, he realized this trick would be his most useful weapon when he was all alone. The woman pauses to push open a heavy door. She smiles and invites the boy inside, where a man with wild hair and a suit is clearly happy to see Crow Jang-yuk. The boy still feels a bit shy, but he walks into the room with a calm heart. The chief gestures for him to take a seat and relax. With a smile, he casually asked if they could chat like friends, and since the other man had been acting friendly from the start, he quickly agreed. First, he lets the boy know he's really impressed that he was on time. The association's president looks confused as Juk begins listing all the help he gave his brothers and sisters. For a heartbeat, neither speaks, but simply looks at each other. But then, the chief bursts out laughing. Even though he didn't believe it at first, he finally thought the boy was telling the truth. Shifting the topic, he moves right to the heart of the matter. In the meantime, the hero stands by, listening closely as the words are carefully put together. He didn't waste a moment and said the group wanted to make a proposal. The president begged the young man to say no to any foreign guilds and stay in Korea. The warrior stays quiet and thoughtful as he carefully studies the situation. To his surprise, the man with gay hair learns that no foreign guild has ever offered to take him on. The research shows that big music groups in America are eager to sign Jungkook. That news sounded like a brand new mystery to the boy. Even though he felt embarrassed, the president admitted that hackers stole the test data and the guilds might have seen the secrets. Thinking it was all a big mistake, the young man asked if anyone knew about his special job. Without wasting a second, the man replied that everyone already knew it, but Cho Janik didn't buy the praise of being a top-tier Seranker, since he was only just an Awakener. The second Awakens were given rank C because of their specific stats. By the end, the hero realized he was just like the rest of them. Koin Jun-hyuk stands frozen, completely stunned by what he's just learned. With laser focus, the man declared that pushing his second awakening to the limit would instantly catapult him to rank A. With the second awakening locked in, the hero believes he could now match the power of a third-tier Awakener and even stand a fighting chance to reach rank S. Given what the boy could do, he was worth a fortune, and the group thought he was a real draw. So, they couldn't just stand there and watch someone so talented get taken away. As the secretary handed him the notebook, he explained that he had set 3 rules. First, he needed a starting fund of 1 billion, and second, the tax breaks would apply only to his own group. Finally, he was handed 2 pieces of top-tier equipment from an A-rank set, all given to him for free. With a pen in his hand, the president tells Troy Jungkook that the deal runs until the second awakening, leaving him with only one job left: agree to the terms and sign the contract. But the hero looked suspicious, pointing out that he was just a rank C. Even after hearing the proposal, he told them he wasn't convinced. All the help given to keep him from moving felt too suspicious, so he asked about other rules, until suddenly the president stood up, realizing the boy was sharp and watching closely. The deal said he couldn't become a citizen of another country while his contract was still active. Leaning over the table, he tells the young man that he can't join a guild yet and needs to talk to them if he wants to go on expeditions. If the group asked the boy to join their raid, he had to put that mission first, no matter what. Cho Young-hyuk would clear away any and all obstacles to join the association. In the end, the warrior faced a guild he had chosen for himself, and though these were the final terms, he would have little time to think about them before they were done. The president warned that the offer would vanish the second he reached out to the other guilds. The young man knew exactly what he wanted and signed the paper, leaving the confused, suited man offering time to think, but the youth was too determined to wait. With determination, the two shake hands and seal the deal. Outside the city, a busy crowd wanders in every direction. Inside a restaurant, a girl looks over the menu choices with the server. Suddenly, a child's face lights up with joy as they realize they're in a huge shopping mall. Koi Jang Yukon took his two siblings along for a fun family trip. The boy's eyes light up with excitement as he asks if he can check out some t-shirts. Yam Jang looks worried by her brother's noise while the hero enjoys himself. They were both stunned to learn they could pick out a few things to buy. Smiling, the hero tells his siblings to pick their 10 favorite things. The kids' faces light up with happiness as they celebrate together. Even though everything was going wildly wrong, he had to hang on until the protection period ended. Koi Jan Hyuk felt nervous thinking about the dangers that might lie ahead on their path. Suddenly, Yin Zhang pulls out a gorgeous blue dress and shows it to her brother. Inyul instantly falls in love with the outfit and tells his sister she has to get it. An employee steps up to tell the kids not to touch the clothes on display, while Junie looks at his list of things to do and thinks about how those tasks connect to what happened before. Right then, he tells the staff to stop worrying because he's going to pay for the clothes. No matter what happened, he had no plans to leave Korea until that list was done. Suddenly, a warning flashes for shoppers as a gate inside the mall unexpectedly swings open. They repeat the details one more time so everyone sees the real picture. They also ask everyone to stay calm and follow the staff's orders. In the middle of the crowd, a woman whispers that the hunters from Tibet are coming soon. Even though orders said everyone should stay in the mall, the customers were already rushing to get out. Outside, the danger was worse, so the only smart move was to follow the woman to get them out alive. In an instant, panic sweeps through the room, and everyone begins to run like they're being chased. Koi Jang-guk watches the scene ahead, feeling the heavy air of tension that is about to explode. As a hunter, he decided to check on what was happening, but asked the employee to look after his siblings. Benjang looks terrified for his safety and warns that the world outside is deadly dangerous. The young man remembered 5 weak, D-rank monsters lurking near the store. That day, a building crumbled as monsters chased the refugees into the big mall, and his hands shook with anger at everything he was seeing. She squats down and asks Yunjong to look after her brother, Yunyul. Knowing the Tibet guild won't show up until the mess is done, he turns to face the monsters with pure determination. In the end, he had to stand alone, biting his nails as he waited for help to arrive. As the monsters arrive and turn the streets into a place of total despair, a calm officer quietly guides everyone to run for safety inside the mall. The air grows thick with tension as people start fighting and pushing harder to get somewhere. While the monsters began to spread all over the city, 5 of them stood ready, eager to tear everything apart in their way. As soon as they hear his screams, the creatures start looking around. People are running in terror, shoving each other as they go. Koi Jang-yuk stands right in the middle, letting everyone zoom right past him. In that instant, despair paints his face as he realizes he is truly alone. The giants march toward him, and he had lost all idea of how to defend himself. He frowns with worry, and then chooses to open the subspace. Right next to him, a glowing door appears, waiting for him to pick the powers he wants to use. A terrifying chill fills the air, showing just how angry the creature has become. The young man refused to let any of them pass, knowing he had to protect his brother at all costs. His shield promised to bring down every enemy. As soon as he moves, he fools his enemy with fast tricks. The strike connects with the opponent's leg with a massive, crushing blow. As soon as the blow lands, the beast lets out a loud, painful scream. He uses his speed to dart all around the area, leaving his enemies confused. He freezes in his tracks to take a close look at what's happening. Those disgusting things move like shadows, turning their bodies to keep the protagonist in sight. Jan Hyuk taunts his rivals and challenges them to a fight. The 5 can't help but feel annoyed by that boy's arrogance. They didn't waste a single second. Instead, they turned and sprinted straight for their tiny goal. Down a busy city street, a long line of cars gets stuck right in the middle of the traffic. A man's anger grows as he realizes the car won't move. The traffic jam was so bad that cars couldn't leave at all, and even the police couldn't fix it. Frustrated by the awful traffic, he is startled when someone suddenly grabs his shoulder. His colleague does everything they can to keep Dasu from panicking. Everyone watched the city street fight unfold in real time. In the thick of the chaos, Journeyuk was pouring every ounce of his skill into keeping the creatures at bay. While filming the fight, a young man told the viewers how much he admired the unknown fighter's bravery. Sitting inside the car, the men lean in to watch the video on their phones without taking their eyes off it. In that very moment, Dao's mind instantly brings to life the image of the young man. Without wasting a second, he says he knows the young man fighting all by himself. His colleague looked at the stranger with wide eyes, wondering just who that man was. Dao grinned and told the boy that he was his biggest fan. Confused, his friend didn't seem to get what he was saying at all. After coming back from Thailand, the man told a story about meeting a fan at the association, but he couldn't recall what the fan's name was. Meanwhile, the young man risked his life to capture the fight's best moments. He realized that if the mysterious fighter died, he would be the next one to fall. He keeps reporting with his gear, showing true professionalism by ignoring the danger to capture this urgent moment. In the end, the young man asks his followers to give generously and donate what they can. The comments show how shocked the viewers are as they talk wildly. One of them swore that even Dao couldn't fight like that. When he read that comment, the man felt completely confused and worried that people didn't believe he could do it. Without wasting a second, he jumps out of the car while his worried friend watches in confusion. But Dao is set on studying people any way he can. With such strong determination on his face, nothing could stop him from reaching his goals. He steps out of the car and leaves his colleague all by themselves. In that instant, everyone started to follow the master right away. One warrior steps forward and asks the confused man to move out of the way. In a flash, every warrior sprang beside Di-Su, sharpening their weapons for the fight ahead. He gave his last command. Zhou Huanwu must find out who that stranger was. Not knowing his name, he warns that he couldn't get much information, but the chief remembered the man was Kim Jong-uk. Finally, the captain looked around to see if everyone was ready for the fight. Their faces showed they would follow their master's orders to protect the people and the city, so everyone could finally charge into the battle together. As soon as they heard the order, everyone took off running straight for the fight. A monster lashes out like a wild blow, but the warrior moves faster, slipping past the attack with every skill he has learned. Even so, the force knocks him down to the ground. His face is slick with sweat from the fierce battle. He starts to pray for help in his head because he knows the fight isn't fair. This was the perfect moment to use that super sense. He carefully avoids the toughest hits and never takes unnecessary risks. His foes were monstrous, wild beasts with so much power that they made even the strongest enemies look weak and sane. Junhyuk sprints for his life, knowing that fighting two monsters at the same time is way too hard. He eases up and comes to a halt right next to the creature's claws. With a roar, the monster looks for the perfect moment to strike. In that very moment, the hero knows his trick worked and the opponent is fooled. But then he spots something strange and is left totally baffled. Suddenly, the opponent leaps forward with a giant paw ready to trample him. Diso shows up with his crew, fully prepared to lend a hand wherever they're needed. As the powerful shield guards his face while he draws nearer, he gathers every ounce of his strength and skill with the stun boost active to land a devastating blow. The creature was so confused it didn't even know where the hit had come from. Jan-hyuk is blown away to see his hero fighting right beside him. His orders were for Kim Da-hun and Jinong Su-jang to look after the two cons. Jae-hwan had to scan the area to see if anyone else was still alive. You were tasked with healing Cho Jan-hyuk and staying by his side until the battle was over. As the boy sits on the ground, he asks the guild master why everyone is so late. Seeing the boy keep talking, Dao realizes he can now fight two more monsters. Once fully healed, the hero joins a team to defend the city. While Duel pours his powers into the boy's body, instead of drawing more hate to buy time, Juni's best move was to switch into tanking mode and knock them out fast. As Dao hands over the shield, he makes sure the boy gets exactly what he's planning. Every second lost made the damage worse. From a distance, they spotted another creature coming closer, and now the two are ready to stand together and fight. The car hurtles toward them, gaining speed with every passing second. Down in the dark shelters, people crouched low to stay out of harm's way. The broadcast said that the Tbeek Guild had already reached the scene, but they still hadn't managed to defeat a single con. Young Jang looked like he was about to fall apart as he heard those words. The employee sees the little girl is scared right away, so Unshield gently tells her not to be afraid because everything will be fixed in a hurry. The two kept talking about Cho Jung-hyuk's safety even as new reports came in, until the hunters finally managed to beat the first Karen. The whole shelter jumps with joy when they hear the news. The kids cheer because they're winning the fight. Ano, driven by curiosity, takes a step toward what's happening, but the employee grabs him and stops him, shouting that going outside is deadly dangerous. Just as she reaches for the boy, he takes off running. Shortly after, another carbon fell to the group, leaving just 3 survivors. The two men embraced in celebration of their win, while messages poured in from people all over the world. They talk about how well the Tbeek Guild works and wonder who the new recruit really is. For nearly an hour, he fought hard to keep 5 monsters at bay. Unkal walks up to the men and tells them that the hunter is his older brother. The boy felt so proud seeing all of Cho Janyak's amazing skills. It was already night outside, and the only light came from street lamps glowing along the dark roads. Even though the fighting wasn't done, the warrior kept running around with his shield in hand. Suddenly, he leaps to distract the Karen. His weapon sharpens into a deadly blade that can finally end the monster. 7 hours after the battle began, it finally came to an end. Just then, Junyuk noticed how exhausted he had become. Now, he could finally rest, but his legs felt so heavy he thought he might just collapse. Du thanked the boy for the amazing work he had done. He picked his words carefully and asked the young man a strange question. The guild master asked if Junhuk was the very first person to awaken and earn a Kank rank so recently. In that instant, he gathered his thoughts and knew this was a serious talk. By the end, the man starts to wonder if the young man might be acting strangely. The main character looks puzzled by that question. Just then, a voice shouts out to the brother. Everyone walks out of the shelter, his siblings and the employee among them. Seeing his family, he calls out to them. The kids dash toward their brother, all safe and out of harm's way. After everything they endured, they finally shared a warm hug. Junyuk beams with pride, watching his younger brothers and sisters act perfectly. Right then, Dao gets a special secret about the boy. But with no suspicious signs in the research, the hero set the troubles aside to soak up the joy of the moment. Before heading home, they would pause to grab some chicken. Inyul looked thrilled, yet Yin Jiang was craving something completely different. Finally, Junyuk declared they could eat anything, and then an employee who had been watching silently stepped forward. The woman thanks him for his hard work and for protecting her and her team, but he replies that he's the one who should be thanking her for looking after his siblings, and in a surprising twist, she hugs him. Tears rolled down her face as she felt more and more thankful for what he did. Koi Janyuk felt so embarrassed that his face turned bright red. Soon after, everyone noticed the famous transition hunter had arrived. The people said he was handsome and charming when he was there. People surged forward to hug and thank the hero who had saved the city. Still, he looked as if he couldn't grasp why everyone already knew who he was. Heavy clouds hang low over the sky, promising a quiet day to come. Inside the office, the TV was showing the latest main news from Seoul, which featured the 5 legendary S-rank monsters making their debut. The report tells the story of the team that defended the city and includes Cho Youngdui. In the end, they declared he had won with a perfect score from everyone, but suddenly the association president showed up to bother the new star. The warrior didn't like the joke and asked to stop being teased, so the man curiously wondered if the young man was busy handling the fame from the gate incident. Ever since that morning, he kept getting calls from people wanting to hire him, but the association had already taken care of everything. Because the battle left him in so much pain, the boy knew he could reach out to the president if things got too bad. Shifting the topic, the man tells him that the government and other officials say the young man is causing trouble. It looks like they found a way to break the usual rules for ranking things. But they were only seen as mutants who weren't as strong as the top S-rank fighters. Koi Genevieve wonders if he needs to sign up. The best move was to sign up in the United States for government help, even though many tried as regulars and only 3 succeeded, because the process was hard and leaving Korea to care for 2 siblings wasn't an easy choice. Now the 2 could talk to the association about the contract, which would bring more help for Cho Jaek. Because the last contract was written for a rookie, the association offered terms for an irregular, but the confused warrior didn't have to wait for proof since he already was one. First, they would boost the support money to 5 billion while keeping the tax cut the same. We'll boost the A-rank rental count to 5 and hand you a top-tier hunting vehicle to help you hunt. But the situation hasn't changed, and there are still no worries. Koi Jang Yinnok looks totally baffled by all the suspicious stuff going on. Even so, the president tries to figure out why the boy looks suspicious. Right then, he pointed and asked about the hunting vehicle. He wondered if it was possible to cover the entire area in a single day. On the highway, a white car suddenly shoots forward. A voice called out that it was Disu, the tanker from the Tbeek Guild. As Juno cruised around in his brand new car, he gave the master a call. The man had told the boy to call him whenever he needed help, but since the boy really wanted to meet him, they decided to open the subspace and meet right then. The portal swings wide and the hero reaches into the humming energy, knowing Stania is only 10 minutes away. He grips a card in his hands, struggling to figure out how everything is set up. He had already made his choice to keep Kieran's blessing and the splitting mount because they were too precious to sell. Instead of selling his cards for cash, he tried to gain their powers, but the attempt failed because he wasn't compatible with them. And after the gate incident, all the spotlight that used to shine on Dao suddenly fell on Choi Janyuk. That's why he packed a little gift for the man who'd save his life. It was a rare skill card called Mount Splitting Tanker. Just then, Diso froze in shock at the mention of that legendary card, knowing there were only 9 in the whole world, but he warned that using it required extreme care to avoid causing damage. The hero smiled, eager to sell his co-worker the rare gear at a fair price. But secretly, he was waiting for something small in return. Daisu, curious about what the young man might need, asked him directly. The moment Young Yuk learned the skill, he just wanted to shake hands. Soon after, they stand in a bright and tidy office where the hero gently presents the special card meant as a gift. Diso stares in shock, knowing the priceless treasure before him is worth billions. But in an auction, that item could fetch a price far higher than that. That's why the man couldn't figure out why the boy was selling the card for so little. Inside his head, the reasons made no sense at all. But the seller had already made up his mind, and besides, he was going to learn the skill anyway. Selling it to a stranger felt much harder than giving the card to someone he trusted. As the first one to awaken, he was able to use the power, reach that rank, and win the match. The two men paused to think about that plan. Suddenly, the conversation shifted to their massive fortune, which had just hit a staggering 20 billion. Diso asked the boy if he'd rather take the money or swap it for something else. In that moment, he starts to wonder if new gear might be on the way. Soon after, the three of them stood before a huge building with walls of glass. The building was priced at a staggering 42 billion, and they asked the young man if he was ready to make such a huge deal. He wonders if he might one day own a building. Sitting right next to him, the guild master begins talking. He grinned and asked the boy if he liked the building. Suspicious, he thinks hard about the offer and stays quiet. Finally, they stop wasting time, and the boy agrees to take the building in exchange for the skill card. The master looks mighty pleased with his shiny new find. Suddenly, a wild energy swallows him and fills the whole world around him. Yumiak's eyes sparkle with joy as he watches the scene unfold before him. The system gave the hunter a green light, proving the new skill was learned smoothly. Now, in Asia, only Li Diso and Wang Weichong from China have mastered the rare mount-splitting skill. He was also about to climb the Asian rankings, so the two shook hands to seal the deal, and then the master curiously asked the young man what he would do with his new building from now on. According to his plans, he was looking for work as a mercenary. For now, he had to hunt carefully in the beginner areas. Despite having plenty of money, he couldn't forget that they lived in a dangerous world and that he had to protect his siblings. When the great catastrophe took his parents away, he had to weather the hardest storms of his life. Because of that, the childhood of the three became a terrible nightmare that wasn't worth remembering. He only hoped his siblings' future wouldn't turn into a nightmare like the past one did. Johnny wanted to give him a life where money wasn't a worry, filled with hope and freedom. Li Disu watches the wise boy with care and feels a warm ache in her heart as she hears his life story. The hunter shakes his head and tells him that living that way would never be possible, even though it's all he ever dreamed of. But the big disaster was just the start, and the whole world was slowly drifting toward total ruin. The monsters were coming more often, and our supplies were running low. Even worse, the dangerous city was filled with villains, assassins, and thieves. Lately, a string of scary killings has been hitting hunters right here in Gangnam. They said the notorious villain known as Shiinsu, who ruled over Daegu, was the suspect. Dao couldn't believe he had to fight monsters while trying to keep the peace with humans. That's why he said his colleagues' siblings didn't need that building, because they wanted a world free of monsters and people like them. All around the tiny building, there was nothing but quiet. The hurt soldier waited with nervous hope for the group to come back. Out of the black shadows, a hooded man begins to rise. Right away, the soldier spots that famous Chin Su. He grinned and said that as a villain, he worked in places all over, including Daegu. In that split second, the fighter knows he's in deep trouble. The assassin taunts the man, gloating that his friends have left him completely alone. But the warrior doesn't wait a second longer. He screams, lifts his weapon high, and rushes straight at the villain. But the villain is quicker and slips right out of the way. Soon, he strikes his foe's belly with a perfect hit, causing the man to crash to the floor in agony. Chinsu knew the soldier had asked for backup, so he couldn't stick around for long. He curiously asked if the guy knew someone named Cho Janyuk, but the man didn't answer and just told him to go to hell. Seeing that the soldier didn't know the mark, he struck his throat hard again. The assassin smiles with delight as he enjoys every moment. After taking another life, he turns to walk away. Just before he leaves, he stops to glance at his phone one last time. He looked at his phone and saw the pictures of the battle with the 5 monsters. With his face splattered in blood, he pauses for a moment before making his choice. Suddenly, he hits the like button on the video. Suddenly, his face changes and he starts laughing so hard it looks scary. A week later, a terrifying monster showed up in Goyang City's beginner hunting zone, ready to hunt down its next victims. With every ounce of strength he had left, the boy finally stopped the attack. That was the last meal we catch today. From far away, the crowd watches the battle unfold. As the creature gets closer, the man stands firm while a nearby fighter protects himself with a bow and arrow. In a flash, the young men suddenly find themselves trapped inside the arena.